This is the Women's Hockey Life Podcast. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Women's Hockey Life Podcast. I'm Ashley Mouzzon, Communications Coordinator for WHL and now co-host of the WHL podcast. Our guest today is a Harvard graduate. She has her MBA. She's an Olympic silver medalist, a hockey ambassador for the Arizona Coyotes. She recently became the NHL Radio color analyst for the Arizona Coyotes, and she also serves as the director of external engagement and female hockey with the Coyotes, and she also owns her own business, Lyndsey Fry Hockey. Welcome, Lyndsey. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Ashley. That was a mouthful you had to power through there, but I appreciate it.
Of course. I mean, your resume is incredible and you've accomplished just so much in a short amount of time and you have so many roles. So before we get into those roles in better detail, can you take us back to where it all started? Like, how did you get into hockey and what was hockey like playing when you were growing up?
Yeah, so I grew up in Chandler, Arizona. So it was definitely a smaller hockey market in general when I was born, and specifically on the girls' side, it was super small. I think when I was born, there were like less than 25 girls in the entire state playing, and Arizona's a big state, so it was really tiny. I think I was a beneficiary of a couple things that happened. So Mighty Ducks came out right around when I was born. And I just absolutely fell in love with those movies when I was 4 years old. And it kind of worked out because my dad was actually commuting back and forth to Southern California at the time. So I got to go see some like real Mighty Ducks games and just sort of like built that love of the sport. And then right as I was starting to get into it, like my parents got me the Fisher Price skates that would strap onto your shoes. Like I was all in. Started as a roller hockey player. That was all happening around like 1995-ish, and in 1996 the Coyotes came to Phoenix from Winnipeg, where they had previously been the original Jets franchise, and a bunch of rinks started popping up. So I got very lucky, I think, with the timing, but I still had to play with the boys, because just because hockey was growing didn't mean that it was equally growing on the boys and the girls side. So I played with the boys until I was in high school, and I love the sport, so the gender didn't really matter to me.
That's awesome. So, I mean, I couldn't imagine, like, when the Mighty Ducks came out, I think I was like just being born. I think we have like a 2-year age difference, age difference. But I mean, just hearing that, and then I know that's like a lot of people's story is just you're growing up and you're playing with the boys. So what was that like for you, playing with just boys and not playing with a lot of females?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't really know anything different. Like it was just normal to me. I think it's interesting. I have a lot of people ask me like, oh, well, is the reason that you love the Mighty Ducks so much because there were girls playing in the Mighty Ducks? And really the answer is no. Like, I don't think that really had an impact. Like, they were never the players I wanted to be in the movies. But I do have to credit Disney for like even taking the time to like think about having that representation. So I think that was really cool. But yeah, it didn't faze me. I mean, I have a younger brother. I always was kind of more drawn to, I guess, like typical boy things. Like I was super sporty, total tomboy. Like I just loved it. So playing with the boys didn't really bother me at all. And I think I was lucky because Arizona hockey being such a small community at the time, especially, it's grown so much. But the kids that I started playing with when I was 6 years old, a lot of them I played with until I was 14. And that's kind of when I made my switch over to girls hockey. So I think I got really lucky. There are horror stories out there, unfortunately, of girls who maybe didn't really fit in playing with the boys and caused them to quit or have confidence issues, whatever. I got really lucky. Like, those boys were my brothers. They treated me like gold. I was voted their captain a number of times. Like, for me, it was a really good experience. Now, boys on the other team definitely didn't treat me as well. So I learned a lot of interesting language at a young age from some of the young boys on the other teams, but it never really fazed me.
That's so good to hear. Cause I mean, you do, like you mentioned, you do hear those horror stories and you're just like, oh my gosh, like it's amazing that some people still had the, perseverance to keep going. Cause I know some people, they're like, no, I'm done. I don't want to
Yeah.
go through this. But what was that transition like? So you played boys hockey for a number of years and then transitioning to girls hockey.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was like the actual hockey side and then the social side. So on the hockey side, it was interesting. I mean, when I grew up, we could start checking at Pee-wees, and I've been, 5'9" since I was probably 11. So for me, I loved I loved the checking aspect. I played 4 years of full hit hockey, and when I was a Pee-wee, I was a head taller than all the boys. And they started catching up like my second year of bantam, but I was tough. I loved it. So I think there was definitely a challenge for me transitioning away from that and just learning that the girls' game is still very physical. It's just a different type of physical. So I actually like totally. I wouldn't touch anyone when I first started playing girls hockey because I was just like, I'm going to get a penalty. I'm going to get a penalty. And I think it took me a while in high school to kind of realize what I could and couldn't do, which I think was important, right? Before I went off to college to kind of learn the girls' side of the game and understand how to play it and also to appreciate the differences and that there's so much more speed, finesse, playmaking, all those things that I love about the game. So that was it took me a little time, but I got there. The social side, I think, is what surprised me the most because like I said, I mean, those guys were my brothers. I loved it. I think I was really upset about like leaving my guys, right, and going to play on this girls team in Colorado. Um, but I quickly learned that it was so much fun. It was so much fun. I mean, for pretty much my whole life, like I had friends at school who were girls, but they didn't really have anything in common with me from a sports side. So to suddenly go and be hanging out with a bunch of girls who all loved hockey, all had similar goals as I did, um, all had similar like humor just from hockey culture. Like it was incredible. So I think the social side is what pleasantly surprised me the most. I was devastated when my parents told me I had to switch. So it was tough to get me there, but once I did, I was like, this is awesome.
I can only imagine because I mean, like you said, like just talking with girls who don't necessarily play hockey, they're just like, I don't get it. And I know when I bring up hockey to people, they're like, oh, do you like hit? And I'm like, it's pickup hockey. We're not trying to like, so people
Yeah.
don't understand like certain hockey cultures. So that's good that you found like that group of girls who you could really just form like a sisterhood with, even though you had to leave the guys that you were playing with for so long. So, speaking
Yeah.
of your NCAA career, you spent your entire time at Harvard University. So, can you explain what that was like going from high school into a prestigious college like Harvard and balancing just being a student athlete? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it totally kicked me in the teeth when I first started. And I'm not shy to talk about that because it was one of the most going to Harvard and playing there was easily one of the most transformative times in my life and probably will always be kind of a definitive time in my life. But yeah, I mean, I came out of high school. I was doing online school so I could travel more. So school had always come really naturally to me. I and on the hockey side of things, like I was a stud from out west. Like I had gone to national camp every year. I'd played on two under 18 teams. Like I was like, "Psh, I got this. I'm gonna come in. I'm gonna start every game. Like I'm gonna be their stud." And it was total. It was a total shock. I mean, when I got there, I went from online school to sitting in a Harvard University classroom. Um, and it wasn't so much that like there definitely was everybody's like, oh my god, was Harvard so hard? I mean, we never really had anything to compare it to, so I don't know. I mean, I think the hardest thing for me was just like suddenly having structure and schedule and due dates and deadlines. Like I just didn't have that when I was in online school, not to that extent. So that was a huge adjustment for me because school had always come really naturally. And then on the hockey side, like I didn't work out hardly at all leading into my freshman year of college because I was like, oh, I'm going to be fine. Like I literally, and I tell this story so kids don't make this mistake, but I'm so embarrassed by it. I remember literally looking through like the other freshmen coming in, who some of them I knew, some of them I didn't. I would look at their Facebook like profile picture and be like, oh, I think I'm stronger than her. I think I'm faster than her. I think like I'll be fine if I don't like lift because I'm stronger than pretty much everybody. It was such a like fixed mindset. So when I got there, I was this Western kid. Like I didn't know who all these women were from back east in Minnesota and who were older than me and stronger than me and had been training at the collegiate level for a number of years. And so all of a sudden I get there, the first thing we do is off ice testing, and I've done like nothing all summer. So I could kind of hide in the strength ones because I've always been pretty naturally strong, but the conditioning one totally failed. Like just quit, like totally failed. So it was a huge adjustment, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. My best friend from Colorado passed away right off the bat my freshman year. So, I mean, it was just, I honestly didn't think I wanted to keep playing hockey. I thought the Olympic dream was just gone. And it wasn't until I kind of shifted my mindset and started believing that, along with the support of my coaches and my teammates, who our culture was very much like, I don't care if you're a first line player or a fourth line grinder, like you put your hard hat on and you go to work. So it wasn't really until I had like bought into that culture, and my Olympic coach kind of sat me down. Well, my Harvard coach, who ended up being the Olympic coach, sat me down and was very blunt with me and was like, do you want to make this team? And I basically was like, do you think I have a chance? And she goes, first 3 lines, probably not. But that 4th line, open for the taking. And so that was really when it all shifted. So it went from like a really rocky transition from high school to college to kind of having that aha moment halfway through to being able to make it onto the Olympic team. And just, I think that process that so many kids do go through when they go and play, I mean, just when they go to college in general, but I think especially if you're playing a sport, it's just, if you buy into it, it can be absolutely life-changing. And fortunately it was for me.
So before I talk about that rocky transition that you had, you mentioned about going to online school. So what was that like? Because I know you were in high school like around like 2008, 2009, and I know that wasn't really like a thing yet. Like going online wasn't a thing. So what was that like learning online for your high school years?
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome in that I had the ability to travel. Nowadays it's so common, I think, especially for athletes. Obviously, with the pandemic, everything changed. But even a little before that, the biggest thing was making sure that my school got NCAA accredited. It originally wasn't. So I'm really thankful we caught that. But yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty motivated person. Like I'll get my work done. I think if anything, I wish I had, like, I think with online school, like you don't have the teachers like looking over your shoulder as you're actually doing the work. Right. So I think it's really like what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. Like I passed all my tests, I did all my stuff, but like I think I did a lot more like memorization than actual like content comprehension than I would have liked. And it kind of bit me when I got to school. Like I was not prepared. I wanted to be a mechanical engineer and build rides for Disneyland. That was like my dream. And I did not put in the time to really understand the material for physics in online school and high school. So I wish I had done that. So I think it's changed a lot though. I mean, I think it's come such a long way from when I was doing it 11 years ago now, which is crazy. But it worked for me. It allowed me to travel, which ultimately I think is what helped me get recruited to go on and reach my goals. So it was awesome for what it was.
Right. And I know with online school, I've done online like college work. And just like you were saying, like there's no teacher necessarily looking over your shoulder, but like you don't get that same type of interaction like you would in a classroom. Like in a classroom, a teacher can reinforce what's being learned by asking a bunch of questions and, getting you to participate. But online, they can just do a discussion and then that's it. There is no other reinforcement of what is being taught. So I definitely understand that one. What is like a favorite memory you have while you were attending Harvard, whether it's hockey related or just in general?
Oh man. I will think so fondly for the rest of my life on my senior year. I had come back from the Olympics at that point. I tore my hip, so I played with a torn hip my entire senior year. And I knew that I was done after that year. So I think I just had this really deep appreciation, every practice, every game, and just every, like, my junior year and even my sophomore year, like, I was so hyper focused on trying to make the Olympic team that I think I missed out on a lot of the social aspects and spending time with my teammates. And so I just decided my senior year, like, I'm not going to do that again. Like, I was still really like motivated and focused, and we wanted to win. But I really tried to be a lot more intentional about just like working hard, having fun, and spending time with my friends. And so, on top of that, we ended up winning pretty much everything we could win except the Frozen Four, where we took second, which was huge for an Ivy League school to be able to do. So yeah, that's not a very clean, like, one specific thing, but my senior year was incredible, and I cry when I hear songs that are, from 2015. So
Totally understandable. I was going to ask, so I know you talked about some heavy things that you were dealing with mentally when you first got to college. So just dealing with that rough transition of going from online to actually having to sit in a classroom and having certain expectations of you. And then you mentioned that you lost a friend your freshman year. So how, just mentally, and just what was your mindset trying to deal with all of those things at one time?
it wasn't good. It really wasn't. I mean, I wanted to quit. I was so overwhelmed. For the first time in my life, I wasn't doing well in school. I wasn't the go-to person for hockey. I got mono my freshman fall too. That was fun. I forget about that. And then just like losing someone so important to me who I had played with, who shared like the college dream with me, was terrible. And so I was angry. I was frustrated, and I think through the support truly of my teammates and my coaches and my family, I was able to take a lot of that anger and frustration and turn it into just like love and gratitude. And I was just, there was a switch that I was like, you know what, I can be angry and sad and all of the things and all the negative emotions right now, or I can try to make something positive out of it. And so that's what I tried to do. I mean, I think I really tried to get process driven rather than outcome driven. I think my freshman year I was very outcome driven. I was so obsessed over like what grades I was getting in school and what line I was playing on and how many goals I had, rather than just like coming to practice and being focused on getting better, or even like doing my schoolwork and being focused on just like absorbing the material. So I think that was the biggest transition for me. I went from a pretty fixed, frustrated mindset to more of that growth mindset. And that, for that reason, it's one of the biggest reasons why I'm so passionate about coaching kids on the mental side of the game, which I do a lot now, which is so fun.
That's incredible. I like that you talked about just changing from that mindset to doing growth. I think that's so important, instead of just saying like, oh, I have to get an A. No, you have to learn the information, not just get an A. You can have an A, but do you remember what was being taught in the class? So I think that's a very important aspect that you brought up. And I wanted to talk about, how do you think all of those experiences transition into how you are today?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think it built me. I think being a student athlete has definitely helped me when it comes to just multitasking, to a fault. I'm very entrepreneurially minded, so that's why I have like 84 different titles, because I love trying things. I never knew I wanted to be a businesswoman. I started my hockey camp business thinking I was going to do 2 camps, and now almost 7 years later, I've probably run close to 75 of them. And so I think it's just, I think being able to multitask, I think being able to take on a lot and then perform well under pressure is something that I've learned from being a student athlete in general. I think like our mantra is team first, and I've tried to take that with me in everything that I do, which can mean a lot of things. I mean, like even in my marriage, thinking about, if I want to be team first for us, like I've got to take care of myself, and I can't take care of you and our dogs and our family. Like I can't do that if I'm not in a good spot mentally. So I've got to make sure that like I'm eating well and I'm working out and, and I don't do it perfectly all the time, but just like having that thought. And then on top of it, it's, hey, when you need something, like I'm there for you, whether that's people I'm managing at work, whether that's, kids who are struggling and just need to talk to me about something. Like that team first mentality, I've really taken that away from that experience. And I think the last one is like, just, it's a little cheesy, but like, this too shall pass, right? Like I thought my world was over when Liz passed away. And it wasn't, of course, right? Like life moves on, and there's nothing that any of us face that we can't handle. So I don't know, it's a pretty long-winded answer, but I learned a lot, and it was an incredible experience.
No, not long-winded at all. I think you dropped some amazing wisdom in there and some little nuggets that our listeners can definitely take away, especially this too shall pass. I mean, I feel like that is applicable to like anything anybody experiences. It's just about just feeling what it is at the moment and then not dwelling on it. I think that's very important also. It's just kind of like acknowledging it and getting through it, and then you got to move on. You just have to, or you're just going to sit in that one spot. Yeah, and you're just going to keep reliving it over and over. So,
and I'm sorry, go ahead. The last thing I was going to say, like, I think something that was also so important to me, and I've never actually articulated this thought, so bear with me, but like, I think like understanding your relationship with failure is super important, right? Like I had a deep fear of failure, and it crippled me. And I think like fear of failure in general is kind of a fixed mindset, but now that I've gotten older, I think I've recognized that like there are a lot of different types of people, but I'll talk about two. Like there are the types of people who want to have one plate spinning, and they want to freaking make sure that plate is perfectly spinning forever and it never falls. I am totally fine failing. If I've got 80 plates spinning at any given time, like I know I'm going to fail on 5 of them, but I got 75 others. I still have 75 plates in the air, and this person has 1. And like both people exist in the world. And I think it's really important to figure out which one you are. Like, what is your comfort level with failure? You have to be okay with failure a little bit, no matter what, but like how much failure are you okay with? I think is really important to like identify with yourself.
I think that was such a cool analogy. I have never heard of it being put that way. I was like, okay, if I have one play, okay, I get it. That was nice. I have to give you a clap on that one, because that was a really good analogy.
Well, thanks.
Backtracking a little bit, because I know you were on the roster in 2014 for the Olympics in Sochi. So you were still in college at that point.
Yep.
So what was that like transitioning now from, you had that rough transition from high school to college. Now you're transitioning from all of those things you dealt with and getting through that. And now you have to get focused and get ready for the Olympics. So what was that dynamic like, shifting from Harvard to now you're on Olympic level competition?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. Like I had played on those under 18 teams in high school. And then after I like aged out of those, I mean, you're just in the senior program at that point. So it's a much bigger pool of players. And I think the thing that people don't realize is like you constantly have to be getting invited back to tryout camps. You can be on a world championship winning team one year and then not make the team the next year. So it's an ever going tryout. I think for me, like after I had that conversation with my coach at the end of my sophomore year, where she's like, you have a chance if you want it, I became so hyper-focused, like obsessively hyper-focused, to the point where like my Harvard teammates would probably be like, you were overly committed. Cause I just like wouldn't go out with my team. Like I'd go to bed at 8:30 p.m. Like I was so structured, but it's what I felt like I had to do. I felt like I had to control every aspect that I could control to give myself the best chance of being on that team. So that was a big change for me. Like I sacrificed a lot of kind of your typical college social time to get on that team. Once I did make it on, it was incredibly stressful. I mean, I withdrew from school for the year. We had to get we originally started as a group of 25 and had to get our roster down to 21 by Sochi. So like every day you're going to practice, it's still a tryout. So it was, but you were so proud to be there because it was like you were representing Team USA. Like it was incredible and incredibly stressful all at the same time. It was interesting because we centralized in Boston that year, and I basically lived in an apartment like on Harvard's campus, which I thought was going to be awesome because like, oh, I'm going to be so close to my friends. And there were days where it was, but it was also hard because like my friends are 2 streets down from me having their parties, having their, and I like felt like an outsider looking into this like fishbowl, and that was a little challenging, but yeah, so it was tough. It was definitely a different level when it came to the training, the social aspect. My role on the team was very different. Harvard, I was like top line goal scorer. On the Olympic team, I was like 3rd, 4th line grinder, like totally different style of play. So yeah, it was a huge adjustment, but ultimately it paid off and had the honor of going to the Olympics, and it was incredible.
I couldn't imagine like the mental toll that would put on someone to have to go out. Okay, you made the team and you're like, yeah, I made it. And then they're like, all right, but you might not, get to the Olympics necessarily. We're just inviting you for a camp. And then you're like, okay, I'm on the roster. But now every practice is, like you said, a tryout. Like you don't know if you're going to be on that final roster. So how did you deal with that just in general?
I had a really great support system of, my family. I think it was really hard for my family because they were booking flights and rooms and didn't know if I was going to make the final team, but they were rock solid for me the whole time, even though I know it was super stressful for them. I had some amazing Harvard teammates who wanted to be on that roster and weren't, who were there for me, which I can never repay them for that. It was really tough because my coach had always been kind of a mental, rock for me as well. And when she was the Olympic coach, like we were just another player on the roster. Like it was a very different dynamic. So I didn't really have that aspect to lean on. But yeah, I think I just reminded myself every single day, why am I doing this? And my why was very different than I think a lot of other people's. Like I wanted to win a gold medal, but I would argue that, and I did, like, that's what you dream about your whole life. But I think for me, like I had this other why that was so important to me, to be the first player, male or female, from Arizona to go represent at the Olympics. Like that, I get chills just thinking about it now. Like the impact I knew I would be able to have just making the team, let alone medaling back in my home state, was going to be astronomical. And it's fun, now we're 7 years later. And it's been really cool what we've been able to accomplish here.
I'm glad that you found like what you could contribute to the team. You're like, I know I already have the skills and I've made it, but if I can say I was the only person that has represented the state of Arizona, I think that was it seems like that was a key driver for you to be on that roster. Yep. So also, now that you've accomplished that, you graduated from Harvard, you have your silver medal, and then you started your own hockey program. So what motivated you to start that program?
So the irony, and I still have people who don't believe me, but it's true. Like I wanted nothing to do with hockey when I graduated initially. And I know that kind of contradicts what I was just talking about. Like I always wanted to come and kind of be the face, be the Austin Matthews figure, right? I never thought I'd make a career out of it. And frankly, I kind of saw that as a cop out with my education. I was like, there's so much more I can and should be doing, so I should do that. But I had nothing else lined up. So I was like, all right, I'll run a camp in Arizona. I'll run a camp in Colorado. And as I was setting that up, I had taken 0 business classes. Like math was probably the closest thing to it. Like I knew nothing about business. So I'm sitting there in my parents' house and I'm like setting up these camps. And I'm like, I bet there's other places like Arizona and Colorado where there are girls playing but aren't getting any attention. And I literally just started cold emailing New Mexico, Seattle, Portland, Utah, Alabama, like every place that I didn't even know if there was girls hockey, and ran like 10 camps in my first year. And that was the birth of my business. And I realized I love marketing. I love sales. I love strategy. And I realized, oh my gosh, I think I'm a businesswoman. I think I'm an entrepreneur. And then that's kind of what inspired me to go get my MBA. And from there, I've been lucky enough to work for the Coyotes for the last almost 3 years for full time, probably 6 years if you include part time, and I've been able to build our girls program here. So it's been a ton of fun. It's been a good journey.
It's so nice that I always found that listening to pro athlete hockey stories, just beer leaguer hockey stories, it's always incredible how hockey comes full circle. Like they're like, oh, I may have started when I was younger and now I'm coaching again and I'm coaching university. And it seems like that's the same for you. You started when you were younger, you went out to play the Olympics, you represented your state, and now you're back in your state building more girls programs and helping grow the game for young girls, which is something we so desperately need right now.
Yeah.
And I think your business sounds incredible. I've checked out your website. It's amazing. And we're definitely going to link it for our listeners. And anybody who is listening that is enjoying hockey as an adult, you also offer adult lessons as well, right?
Yeah, I have a couple, most of my camps have either a co-ed adult, like skate one of the nights, or a women's skate. So those are some of my favorites too, because like the adults, they're so eager to learn. Some of the kids are like, my mom signed me up, and I'm like, okay. So I love working with the adults. It's so fun.
That's awesome. I always love how honest kids are. You're just like, are you excited? And they're just like, I just got thrown into this. Like, I really do.
Yeah, they're like, I don't really want to be here. I'd rather be by the lake. And I'm like, all right, good. Well, we're gonna have some fun.
So as you do your own program, and you just became the 4th female in the NHL to join NHL Radio for the Arizona Coyotes, how is it like balancing everything? So you're balancing broadcasting, you're balancing your own program, and being the director of the female program for the Coyotes. Like, what is that like?
I have an incredible wife. I'll start with that. It's a lot. I feel very fortunate that I have a lot of support kind of in all areas. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to do it. And what I mean by that is, the fact that I kind of have my Coyotes day job and then my Coyotes night job with radio. They're really good about supporting me with that balance, right? So like if I have a game where I don't get home till midnight, all the other broadcasters can sleep in till 11 if they wanted to, right? Like my work day for my day job starts at 8:30. So being able to have a little flexibility with, not necessarily my work hours, but just like working from home, like changing things a little bit. So that's helped a lot. I think on the girls side of things, because I still oversee all of that, like we have just an incredible team that helps keep that ship running. I just kind of move the sails when I need to here and there, which has been awesome. My camps are in the summer, so that kind of offsets the radio stuff that's obviously in season. So I find a way to make it all work, and it's just a joy. I mean, I think I wouldn't be able to do this if I didn't love everything I was doing, right? And I think that's the biggest thing that I share with people is like, you want to be busy, great. You want to go try to make a lot of money and be an entrepreneur, great. If you're not loving what you're doing, then you're going to get in 6 weeks and then be like, why the heck am I here? I hate it, because things get hard. I mean, there are nights where we would have games where I would not get home until 12:30 at night, would try to scarf down some dinner, and then would be up the next morning, like needing to be ready to go. It's hard, but when you love it and you love the people you're around, that's what keeps you going.
I definitely agree. You can hear your passion for women's hockey and just hockey in general. So I definitely think that's another just great piece of advice, is that whatever you're doing, if you're not passionate about it, it's going to come through and it's going to show and people are going to pick up on it and you're going to pick up on it. And then it's not going to make whatever it is that you're doing fun and you're not going to enjoy it. So
that's honestly, sorry, I was going to just say, like, that's why I stepped away from like competitive coaching. I am not a competitive coach. I love seeing like individual skill development, or I love working with like 8U players and getting them to just fall in love with the game. Like having self-awareness to recognize what you enjoy and what you don't, I think is one of the biggest strengths anybody can have.
I agree with you. And what does it mean to you to coach those young girls who may not play hockey in college or even high school, just giving them the fun now? What does that mean to you, knowing that you're kind of like their role model?
I love it. I mean, it's one of the greatest honors of my life, to be honest. And I think the biggest thing, like, I don't strive for all of our kids to be on an Olympic team. Like, that's not my personal goal. And I think a lot of it is because, like, it's hard. Like, I know the challenge, I know the stress, and I know that not everybody's built for that. And if certain kids try to go down that path, they're going to hate it and they're going to leave. The best things that have ever come out of this sport for me are my education, my friendships, my memories. Like that's it right there. And you don't have to be an Olympian to do any of that. So if I can give these kids friendship, life lessons, great coaches, like that's what matters the most to me. So and if I can be a role model for them to just like work hard and stay out of trouble and pursue what they love to do, then that's all I could ever ask for.
I love that so much. So seeing that you are like kind of like that integral part of helping grow the women's game in Arizona, and when you do your camps abroad and out of state, where do you think you see women's hockey in the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh, that's a tricky question. I will just say, I'm going to keep it very high level. I think that I deeply hope that all of women's hockey can pull together. I think we are stronger as one, and I think there are just too many smart women. We're all college educated. Like we're freaking so smart. And I just think there's so many amazing things that we can do. So I hope to see in the next 3 to 5 years. I definitely hope to see one consistent league, and we'll see what ends up happening. And I think it's going to be incredible, and hopefully another gold medal coming up here for Team USA. That would also be nice.
Yes, with the Olympics coming up so soon. So our last question before we wrap it up, because I feel like you have dropped such knowledge today and such wisdom. I was like, we could turn this into like a TV segment. You have dropped so much important stuff in here today. So if you could tell your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, man. I mean, it's a little cliche, but like, I think high level, I would probably tell myself, like, just work hard and have fun. Like, don't lose sight of why you play the game or why you do anything, right? Like whatever you're putting the most of your time into, like, make sure you're having fun doing it. And then on top of that, make sure you're working hard at it. I didn't really understand like what hard work meant until, hi buddy, until I got to college and kind of had my world flipped upside down. So I wish I had trained before my freshman year, I guess is what I'll say. So I think, work hard, have fun.
I think that's such great advice. And I have a little visitor here.
Hi, buddy.
Thank you so much for talking with me today. I will definitely be dropping all of your social handles and your YouTube channel and your website for your business. So thank you again so much. And I just hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Awesome. You too. Thank you so much, Ashley. And let me know if you need anything.